Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. This guy's been under the weather for a little while. I apologize for that, but we are making a comeback this week to talk about something from an individual that I found and someone else, others in our small circle have found, and spend the week talking about these elements in terms of tabletop role playing game design. Now, of course, it doesn't mean that you need to be currently designing a game, but it does give some insights into like what draws us from games. And the question came up from a prior episode, and of course, I don't like to do a lot of uh, presupposing or investigation, but someone else who did do that work gave me some insight, so I thought we would talk about it here. So we're going to talk about another YouTuber who did some investigation into why things feel intuitive. Does a thing feel right? And also today we're going to talk about, and this might stretch through all week, like some elements of game design sometimes outwardly don't make sense, but it feels right. It feels like, why is something sticky? Sometimes people will talk about things, whether in the game design element or literature or pop culture. Why do some ideas stick and stick around, even though logically or pragmatically or even for those of you who are very good at the maths, realize like this doesn't make any sense. Why does it stick around? So anyway, guys, grab your stacks, put your feet up. Let's get past the intro and talk about game feel, intuition, and empty spaces. Again, thank you very much for sticking around. Had to cancel our last two sessions, and apologize for that. A man of a certain age who was having a confluence of certain biological drawbacks happening, and it's just like, so I'm trying to, I feel like I've got a head cold that just won't go away, and it's just sticking up there or whatnot. So forget all that. We're going to talk about intuition in gaming, and I am going to show you here's the channel of the individual that sparked this. Now, for those of you that understand this concept in the change in the algorithm in YouTube, and a lot of other algorithms now are by discovery. So you may get a video that from 5 years ago, you may get discovery from smaller channels. This individual is about the same size as my channel, and much dare I say, much better with the display and the rhetoric and the investigation and the layout and all that kind of stuff. So much better. But there was a recent video, 5 Virtues of Intuitive Dice Mechanic, right here, and there's a link to this video in the description, in which the gentleman goes through a series of investigations that correlate with how we design tabletop role-playing games. And I found it very interesting about, like, let's cancel this first, and then I will bring up your comments here. Hello, everyone. Yeah, Drew, we're always on the same page. I always describe it as how the sausage is made, because sometimes we those of us in the gaming sphere, sometimes we really don't want to know how the thing is made or what's behind it. If I dare say, let's bring bring your comments up here on the side. Uh, dare I say, maybe this might be a little too soon, but the there are channels now talking about literally how games are made, and what I mean by that is the United States now has thrown into flux. United States, our government has thrown into flux the idea of tariffs and um, parity amongst shipping and how much it costs to get something made and where it's made at and who's making it and it's all this kind of stuff. And not the most exciting materials to be engaging with in the YouTubes when it comes to games. Maybe sometimes all we want to do is find out what the next game is, but when you end up realizing what type of troubles the behind the scenes of business and development, it's a pretty complicated thing, and a lot of us really, to keep the illusion up, really don't want to know. We're just like, when's my next game coming? Period. Don't tell me about the 3.2% you had to pay because the glue didn't stick on the cover of your latest book. I just want to get the book. And it's unfortunate, but that is a part of the gaming sphere. But what we're going to talk about today is about I had a hard time abounding what we're going to talk about. So I picked intuition, feel, and empty spaces. And what I mean by that is that sometimes we game designers push ourselves into a corner and we stick with an idea. And we often wonder, for example, my wonderment as to percentile systems and using tarot cards and playing cards, why we don't see more of it. And there may be a very logical reason why those systems haven't stuck in a grander purpose, and we're going to get into that. So, to back myself out of a corner as to why we don't see a lot of percentile systems in the Tome of Lime Gaming YouTube channel, and like I said, the link is down below. Oh, and actually, you know what? I might even snatch up this guy's YouTube channel, and here we go. Copy this. He mentioned that human beings have a difficult time, despite all things being equal. Human beings don't consider things to be equal at all, and one of those is that we prefer to add than subtract. We are visual categorizers, and differences in percentages, we often misinterpret differences in percentages as likely and not likely to happen, despite the fact that the math says otherwise. So an example would be, there are many people who love our skill-based percentile games. Call of Cthulhu, Mithras, Rune Quest. There's a number of these basic role-playing. Hey, a lot of these games run parallel and they use a percentile system. But one of the difficulties in accepting those is the fact that how many times have we seen a game that is a roll under system, and the reviewer or game designer or individual going through it tells people, hey, this game is excellent, with the caveat it is a roll under system. And some people, it just doesn't feel right to them. It's not that it's not mathematically sound. It's not that it doesn't, for example, roll under systems tend to be very bounded, meaning like when you have additive systems, when you have a dice or dice pool or something, and you just keep adding, keep stacking without limit, sometimes people will take advantage of that, where we joke here on this channel about the White Wolf games and the Exalted games and Shadow what's the cyberpunk? I was about to say Shadow Dark, because Shadow Dark's on my mind. Shadow Run, where you get buckets of dice and it's just roll, higher, higher, higher. Pathfinder has suffered from this with, the so many multiples of modifiers that it just goes into infinity. So roll under systems are in such a way that it bounds that number bloat. And that's a good thing for many game designers and for game masters who have to run a game. They prefer bounded under because that way they can keep a head on how many dice you're rolling, how many modifiers are in it. But it does feel unintuitive to feel good about subtracting something. So I'm gonna pick on you here, Drew, and I'm not picking on you, but to keep the conversation going, that how when we have an additive game, and when I say additive, it means adding modifiers, finding something on your character sheet or within the game to add to your dice roll, to to add to the situation. It feels much better for us to accumulate things. So how does that relate to a negative aspect of a game system? Well, sometimes uh, adding things to us, we do have a parallel to that in the regular world. So what I mean by that is, in let's pick on Dungeons and Dragons. So in Dungeons and Dragons, we have a character sheet, and we start at 100%. And throughout the game, all we're feeling is attrition. We're feeling loss. We're losing hit points. We're losing spell levels. We're losing equipment. We're losing, on the rare occasion, we're losing an attribute point. Our strength reduces, our dexterity, our intelligence reduces, and it's all about 100% and coming down from that high. And it feels bad to have things taken away from us when we are at our best at 100%. And so throughout the Dungeons and Dragons game design, there have been more and more and more things added to keep players at their 100%. Hey, sleep overnight, eat some rations, you're at 100%. Take a short rest, you're at 100%. Drink this potion, you're at 100%. Hey, I have a gaming feature that puts me back to 100%, and that feeling of feeling good because we feel robust and everything is taken away from us. But I think the same can apply for negative aspects too, meaning I think Blades in the Dark does this, and there's some other games that do this where instead of your hit points going lower and 100% and going downwards, you start gaining something. You gain stress. You gain a condition. In my game, because Drew and I are game designers, of course, and we both use the different phrases. One of the phrases that I use in my game is called baggage, and in Drew's game, it's called friction. And you start gaining this thing. And so I think in a real world sense, we do have an applicable way of thinking about that. We know individuals that carry with them baggage. We carry with them bad habits. An individual feels good, but they start to carry on their back more responsibility. And I think that translates into our games. And it is a negative feature that feels better in many ways, right? You're not taking something from me, you're adding something to me. Now that adding to me is making me less productive in the game. I'm slower, I can't think straight, I can't see things. It's getting in the way of me rolling my dice. Even I know I'm going to butcher this, but the second edition and further editions of World of Darkness in Vampire and Mage and Werewolf and whatnot, they instead have a system where you're rolling the same dice, but in Vampire, you're replacing one die with another die known as a hunger die. And in that way, it doesn't feel like it's subtracting from your character. You're just having some of the dice replaced with other dice, and I think that's intuitive. I think it's okay for us to describe someone carrying more on them, and then you thereby are trying to drop those things down. And I think we, in our current parlance, can understand that. Also, there's something else that wasn't brought up in Tome of Lime's video, but we never see this in our current game, and I think it's because of the intuition part. We don't see lower stats as better stats. We have our classic strength, dex, con, intelligence, wisdom, charisma, and there is a way to do that where you can say a strength of 12 is worse than a strength of 5 by rolling the d20 and rolling above your stat and using modifiers to reduce your stat so you have a better probability of outcome. And we never see that. We never see like, hey, having twos and threes are better than 12s and 15s, or whatever the game system may be. Yeah, we don't see that at all. As a matter of fact, I pick with the Monad ecosystem from World Anvil. The Monad ecosystem uses a dice pool mechanic, and the more dice you roll in a dice pool, the greater chance you have of failing. And it's a counterintuitive game mechanic, and I think sometimes it doesn't feel right, which is why the mathers in our community get frustrated with something that's become very sticky, and that is advantage and disadvantage. Advantage and disadvantage has come in different forms, but ever since 5th edition began using rolling 2 dice and taking the better for advantage, or rolling 2 dice or multiple dice and taking the worst for disadvantage. I used to call it the aid system: advantage, inspiration, disadvantage. It never stuck, and whatever. But rolling those dice feels intuitive, and despite the fact that the mathers dislike the way the math runs, because if you roll a die once and you get a very high result, the second die has very little impact on it. And of course, rolling multiple dice when you're not adding them together have no impact on each other. You still have the same probability of rolling any number between 1 and 20 on a d20, no matter how many of those d20s you roll, which is why having advantage you can still fail, and while having disadvantage you can still succeed dramatically. And it's designed that way. It's designed to be like, whoa, hey, it's a little bit of a gambler's high. But it feels intuitive that if I'm rolling 1 die, I don't know what's going to happen. But if I roll 2 dice and I get to pick the best one, it feels good. It feels right. And that's a very hard thing for game designers like ourselves to accept, that I've got this great idea for this game. I know the mechanisms, I know how it's going to work, but when it's play tested or when I run it through when I turn the engine on, it just doesn't feel right. And it's unfortunate because uh, you know, math and probabilities and logic and all that kind of stuff may we start banging our heads and going like, but this should work. On paper it works. Why doesn't it feel good? And we human beings are fallible, and probabilities don't align with how they actually work. Um, there's a I'm going to go back to the concept of the gambler's high. So I feel that percentile systems might work a lot better. Um, th- Talking about Mithras and RuneQuest, and hell, even Eclipse Phase, where there's a roll high, not over mechanism in there, that I feel if more game designers brought that to light in their percentile system, if they brought that to light more so, then maybe the players would understand it. Because we understand what like blackjack is. We understand pushing your luck and being successful, but not going over the edge. And we understand, how many action movies have we seen people go towards an edge, and the fear is going over that edge, and you're riding on the razor's edge. And those systems, and it doesn't have to be percentile, but those systems are like roll high but not over. So if you have a 72%, I don't know, gun skill or climbing skill or hacking skill, you really want to roll high but not over. And the rolling high not over might be you are in specific conflict with an enemy. And if the enemy has a 45%, I don't know, knife skill, and your sword skill is 72, one side could win over the other by rolling higher than the other one, but not over your limit. And so you can have some variation in there, but Yeah, a little difficult to grok because the human being wants to know. I just want to roll the dice. Did I fail or did I not fail? That's another oddity in our game system, our gaming community, where we tend to roll the dice first and then start um, grokking, messing with all the modifiers, instead of say like Numenera, where you must get all your modifiers up front first and then roll the dice, and then in that way you know what you need. Um, in gambling, in gambling, we, it tends to be adding up all your because it's not really adding modifiers, but there is a tendency to want to start adding modifiers first, and then you draw the dice or spin the wheel or whatever, and you do that at the last minute so that when the number comes up, you know if you've won or not. And with the d20 rolling and bobbing around and not stopping, or rolling percentile dice, or using something like a cup, a dice rolling cup or a tray, or using a dice tower and waiting for the dice to come down. There is a bit of a gambler's feeling as to everyone waiting on bated breath till that thing happens. Now, of course, many of us play online. You use a dice roller, but even a lot of the dice rollers on your phone or on your computer do have that like fictional, rolling die teetering on its edge, finally rolling to one side or the other, and then you achieve your goal or not achieve your goal. And that's kind of fun. I'm also going to talk about blank spaces, empty spaces, and I feel like Shadow Dark has, like Sun Tzu's Art of War. Shadow Dark has put together itself a game that expects to have empty spaces, and players who remember the OSR or introduced to the OSR are introduced to these empty spaces, that fruitful void, and but they are invited to enter into that fruitful void. Rather, some games kind of tell you there shouldn't be an empty space, and when you find that empty space, it's not fruitful. It's just like, why isn't there a rule for this? It's been telling me all along there should be a rule, and there's no rule for it. An example would be, uh, we talked about the designer of Mothership, the percentile system horror tabletop role playing game. It uses percentile dice, and but doesn't really focus on that. So a lot of people like Mothership, but you never really see them complaining about the percentage dice. Is because it there's so many other aspects to the game that invite you to engage in it that don't involve rolling dice. And Shadow Dark is a game that has really embraced this concept. And so the idea of it is, instead of um, in current fifth edition, how people describe like a perception check is, okay, I open up the door and I walk into the room. What do I see? Roll dice, right? And but what the encouragement is in the old OSR was, there is no die roll to just make perception. You must engage with the game world. I look under the bed. I look behind the tapestry. I open up the chest. I feel against the wall. I roll the marbles or um, ball bearings on the floor. Do they uh, fall into one center of the room, or is there an angle? I have feathers or dust. Is there wind blowing and things like that? And for it would seem counterintuitive that not rolling dice for success and failure um, is like not playing the game. But the question and answer, the conversation that happens back and forth, that is the game. The dice just get involved. The randomizer itself, whether you're using playing cards or tarot cards or some other aspect, get involved when there is a question of the outcome and neither side understands what the outcome of that is. And so in the OSR, it was like you almost wanted to avoid rolling dice because there was so many negative outcomes from rolling those dice if you don't get your way. So it's better to have the conversations back and forth, and it's encouraged to say, all right, well, um, I'm going to use my 10-foot pole and lift up the tapestry. Hey, Trudy, yeah. He's a good boy. Yeah. He's uh in the morning I take my medicine, I eat or drink something or what have you, and and they run themselves ragged. And where's your sister? You know, her brother and sisters is just like, I'm tired. I want to lay down. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Big brain stuff. Absolutely. So, but and I understand that these kind of conversations are a little bit. I don't want to say highbrow, but a lot of times I'm still a beer and pretzels kind of guy, and sometimes when it comes to a game, I understand that there are members of our community that are like, no one understands how this is wrong, and yet everyone's embracing it. Like advantage and disadvantage has been embraced within the system, even though the maths don't fall in line with the feeling of doing that said thing. Now we've seen games where they use an advantage disadvantage system in terms of like adding a die. Like you get to roll d20, but you get to add a boon or a bane. I get to add a d6 or subtract a d. You got to roll a d6 and subtract it and whatnot. And I understand there are many people that don't want to align with advantage and disadvantage, and I get it. And it's not good for every game, but it does feel good, and because it feels good, it's sticky. Now, here's another thing that is um that it invites us into this empty space void from Shadow Dark, which, Kelsey Dion, listening to interviews with her, you can tell that she very much was embraced and grew up around the OSR. And one of those aspects is that random tables and involving yourself in a game is about context, and that once we humans add context to something, our brains will fill in the blanks. Without context, something without context is a blank slate, and a lot of times our brains will ignore it or cast it aside or feel like it's not worth our time thinking about that thing without context. Let me give you an example. Um, First, we're going to go with art and design, then we're going to go into our gaming. So, art and design. Imagine hiring someone, artists, for your tabletop role playing game, and they ask, "Oh, well, what would you like?" And you, price is no limit, and you say, "I'm going to hire the 10 greatest artists. I want them to design art for my tabletop role playing game." And when they ask you, "Okay, what are you looking for?" and all you say is, "I don't care. You have a blank slate." They're like, "Well, is it science fiction or fantasy, or is this a modern setting? Is this dark and gritty? Is this more joyful?" You go, "I don't want to give you any limitations. I want you to make up whatever you want." For an artist and even a designer, that's the worst thing in the world, is to just be given a clean white blank slate with no context. Will never get people's imagination started. Um, but adding context or a funnel for imagination, our mind starts filling the blank in. So an example would be, lots of gamers hate random tables, and random tables tend to be just like a list of monsters in default with no context, no reasoning. It just seems like a slog. It gets in the way of us getting to the main encounter. And maybe it might even have some dice listed next to. Yep. Yeah, it might even have some dice listed next to the random table. 3d6 wolves. I don't know, d20 rats. Whatever. Even something like that. And with no context list to it at all. Oh, you're going through the woods and there's roll 8 orcs. Okay. But the moment we add just a slight bit of context to it, and I should have brought, you know what? Why didn't I? Duh. I'm not very smart. Let's see. Do I have a Shadow Dark? I hadn't even thought about pulling this up, so I'm going to pull up the Shadow Dark book and show you what context is. Oh, cool. We're going to. Wow, that was interesting. That's awesome. I'm going to place this right here and Shadow Dark. So I'm sharing out a random page in the Shadow Dark book, and this random page. Let's see, just so anyone who owns the Shadow Dark book can get to it. What page is this? Page 142 of the physical book. So Shadow Dark has a large number of random tables. As a matter of fact, let's increase this let's make this a single pager, so we can see this a little bit better. And it seems like a minor thing, but again, this is a table of random Arctic encounters, okay, in the Shadow Dark book. But you'll see here that these encounters have with them context, and that context, then our brain starts filling out. The imagination that we didn't have with a blank space starts filling something out. So let's go through some of these. Number one, an albino kraken twitches inside a glassy mountain of ice. And mind you, none of this is arranged by character level. So this is not balanced. This is not designed to only be for third level characters. There's no CR. This is true OSR. You're out in a dangerous world and your ass can get crushed in a minute. And first level characters could, if on a roll in D100 table, I guess, on a 0-1, find an albino kraken which twitches inside a glassy mountain of ice. Now, here's the context. The kraken hasn't escaped, but apparently it isn't alive, and it's inside something that's large as a mountain of ice. Why? Was it trapped? Did a mage put this kraken inside of it? Will it crack at some point? Is there an enemy out there that's like, I'm going to take my axe and smash the bottom of it to release the kraken itself? Maybe the players came upon the end game of an enemy that, and you see how my brain is just coming up with ideas. None of that is in here. None of that is listed here, but all of these encounters have context added to them, which then creates questions. Players can say why. There's always a why after these. 2d12 cannibalistic bandits led by a frost troll make camp. So we've got the number of them. We know they're cannibalistic because there's bandits. Well, how do the players know that they're cannibalistic? Well, we start describing that. There's blood dripping down their face. They're carrying body parts of humanoids, over their sack. They're led by a frost troll. And is a frost troll vulnerable to fire? What is a frost troll? If you're a person who's played classic Dungeons and Dragons, right? And they're making camp. Making camp, why? Did they just kill some individuals? Are they heading somewhere? Are they just survivalists? Or because they're bandits, did they just rob someone? Who did they rob? All of that comes up within context. And we'll go through a few more of these, and we'll get back to talking about some other things. Another one, a group of orcs and a snow ape battle over deer meat. Could the players avoid this entire encounter? Of course. Who deserves that deer meat? The group of orcs or the snow ape? Maybe the group of orcs aren't native to this region. Maybe they're trying to survive just like the player characters, because there's no details about the orcs, but clearly there's a detail about the snow ape. A murderous fur trader on the run tries to sell stolen pelts. Who did they steal the pelts from? Right? Where did the pelts come from? The murderous fur trader, who did they murder to steal those pelts? And why did they do so? Are they desperate? Are they greedy? Are they insane? Are they starving? Whatever. 3d6 ice-rimmed skeletons burst from the snow. Okay, so they've been burnt. The skeletons have burst from the snow. There's 3d6 of them. Does that mean there's more skeletons below? If the players run, does that mean they're going to... the Game Master could have roll 3d6 and have 2 skeletons burst from the snow. And as the players move through the snowy tundra, 1 or 2 more skeletons pop up, and 1 or 2 more, and then another one, and then 3 more, until they get to the proverbial I rolled 12. I rolled 12 or 13 skeletons, but I'm only going to have 2 of them pop up. And now there's a question, buried in the snow. 1d6 will-o-wisps made of ice float around a frozen pond. And of course, there is a monster known as the will-o-wisps, but they are made of ice, which changes their nature, their description. If they're made of ice, is there like a skeletal face on the inside? Or maybe they're just 2 beady orbs floating on the inside, giving them a strange glow that doesn't cast any light, or something silly like that. And so on and so forth. There's even things like an unnatural glow emanates from a deep crevice. And of course the answer is like, why? What? If it's not a very arcane, very dark, gritty encounter, maybe that glows because there's someone down there and they lit a fire. If it's more arcane, maybe there's a spell going off, or there's a magic item stuck down there, or an illusion, or whatever. A blind, dying mammoth charges towards sound, and the players could try to remain quiet. The blind, dying mammoth means that you could maybe find, I don't know, the elephant stat block and just say that it's blind and it has disadvantage. If it's dying, why is it dying? Is it from disease? Was it a number of spears or in its hide? Is it from like a rabies or an infestation of maggots or something? Who knows? It hurt itself? Well, I don't know. Maybe it's elderly. I don't know. A wyvern circles the skies looking for seals or deer. A blizzard kicks up 1d4 damage per round if unsheltered. A group of 2d6 hobgoblins hunt for 1d4 winter wolves. And again, context. Why are they hunting for the wolves? Were the hobgoblins injured because of the wolves? Or is this their way of taming those wolves? So on and so forth. So I just wanted to show off a small bit of that from Shadow Dark and why people have fallen into it. Hey, what's going on? Yeah. Yeah. You're like, what? Made of ice? I know. That might throw some players off as well, right? It's like you can always we can make infinite monsters without having to buy new books, just by simply reskinning, reflavoring, repurposing our monsters and whatnot. Like, of course, what I would do is, 1d6 will-o-wisps made of ice. First of all, I wouldn't call them will-o-wisps at all. I would give them a new name, or let the players make up the name what you think they are. And if the players come up with a really cool, funky name, well, that's what they are. They aren't will-o-wisps. I'm just using a stat block, but I wouldn't call them that. Just like I wouldn't, one easy thing is not to call hobgoblins hobgoblins, or wyverns, or skeletons or something. Just describe it a different way. What's the television show? The Walking Dead goes out of its way not to call zombies zombies. Some call them walkers, shamblers, biters, whatever, and just call them something different, even though we know what they are. And the players could also guess this, right? And they can guess and go, I bet they're hobgoblins. Well, you don't know. They've got blue skin and I don't know, ice for hair or whatever. You could give them, describe them differently. Their lower forearm is split in half, where normally our fingers split into two. Their split goes all the way up to the elbow, and that's what their arms look like or something. And they also have two thumbs on each hand, and they've got bug eyes. I'm trying to change these hobgoblins away. Blue skin, bug eyes, I don't know, go on, so on and so forth, right? Until they don't look or act like what it was, and you're just using numbers like a stat block. Excuse me. Oof. Anyway, let me close this out. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm gonna let it sit here. So, Shadow Dark, and I actually didn't have the idea of like talking about Shadow Dark too much, but in Shadow Dark, no, I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna page ahead to someplace else. These are the continuation of the Arctic encounters. There's an artisan district, and here in the artisan district we have the exact same thing, where it's not just, let's look at the front of this, an execution, an angry efreet, an assassin, a glassblower, a group of thugs, an herbalist, a thieves guild, but all of it has context to it. An execution is about to happen. It's a PC's family member. An angry efreet rises out of a tarnished brass lamp. An assassin drops from above, mistaking a PC as a mark. A glassblower accuses a PC of breaking a priceless vase. A group of 2d6 thugs rush the stocks to free their leader. A fight breaks out between two groups of rival nobles. A herbalist accidentally creates a toxic cloud of smoke, etc., etc., etc. And all of these are like context creating, idea generating, question forming. What does this mean? A cloaked figure defaces a shrine to Madeira and bolts. And based on your world, who's Madeira? A shrine to Madeira? Is Madeira a deity, a saint, a person, an individual that has died recently in a wrong persecution of this individual? We don't know, but you can make that up, and it leads to a question, and that question leads us into, and mind you, all of this, there's no answer for it. 1d6 guards mistake a PC for Plenty to Swift, a criminal. That's it. We don't have stats for Plenty to Swift. We don't even know who Plenty to Swift is until we rolled it on this table, and that might be the very first time that the players and the game master has even seen this. So, is Plenty to Swift a minor criminal and we don't care, or is Plenty to Swift a known stat blocked individual that we need to go for? Doesn't matter, right? And that the OSR is the place where, let's move this back up here. The OSR is the place where questions about questions about the empty spaces. We did a review of a thing called we did a review of a Jewish-inspired adventure mystery game made for the OSR. And in it, we had a woman that was a vampire that hidden under her bed or stuffed between the mattress, folded, in a small cloth, was a foreskin. And there was no other information related to it. Yet during our conversation and review of this game, we were coming up with, well, maybe this vampiric woman had a child. Maybe one of the adults in the village that she was located near was her child, and she's an immortal and she looks out for this individual. Maybe she lost her child in childbirth before she gave herself over to, or was forcibly turned into a vampire, and so on and so forth. But there was no answers to that. But it was the slight opening of the door to allow our brains to start filling in the context. And that is a big part of the OSR. And the very act, you hear the breaking of my voice there, the very act of engaging with these questions is the reward in not rolling the dice. Yeah, right? That was the reward of engaging in the game. So as a game master, dungeon master, whatever, the idea of not rolling the dice is not skirting the rules. It's not ignoring the game. Kidding. It isn't even, dare I say, it is the players using a tactic, but it is the best of tactics by basically saying, you know what, your investment in the game by using all the players' creative spark and inspiration and using that to fill out the game world so that the game master goes, you know what, I was thinking this one thing, but you guys have a better idea. Right now, on the fly, without letting you guys know, I'm changing it and rewarding you for your great um, inspirations and engagement is the success that the players want and is the one that I'm looking for. So yeah, not rolling a perception check, but instead going like the players are like, hell no, we're not stepping in between 1d6 orcs and a snow leopard or snow ape fighting over deer meat, even though we're starving and cold and hungry ourselves. We're going to go the other way. You looking over my shoulder there, kitty? Sorry. Oh man, it's hitting. Lastly, ow, dare I say, there's something known as a mouthfeel. Didn't know there was such a thing as mouthfeel till I saw the movie. What was the name of the movie? The Menu. But there's a bit of like mouthfeel when it comes to tabletop role playing games, in the sense of sometimes a mechanism or part of the lore or how we use the dice or whatever. It just feels right. It just feels like the thing to do. And I am so sorry. And we shouldn't ignore the fact that just because something feels right and the math doesn't work out right, adding this into the game doesn't feel right, but it just works, is a good thing. And sometimes different elements that are separate come together and make a part of the game. Let me give you an example. In going back to Shadow Dark. So in Shadow Dark, I love that movie. The movie, yeah, the Menu had a great mouth feel. He sure did, especially towards the end. I was just like, this movie is crazy, but I love it. Do yourself a favor and watch the Menu. It's built on a bit of comedic tension and whatnot. It's a great movie about a psychotic, cultish, a chef who is intent on making the very last meal of people to enjoy, and it's funny. It's hilarious. It also points a lot of fun at eating, foodie culture, and I would even say like movie culture fandom. It really points fun at fandom and stuff. It's really good. But anyway, the idea that in Shadow Dark you only have so many slots to carry all your ill-gotten gains, all your shit. And so, what is it? I think it's strength, minimum 10, but it's strength number of slots or with a minimum of 10 for how many items you can carry. So if you have 13 strength in Shadow Dark, you have 13 slots to carry things. And of course, when carrying those items, I think it's 100 gold per slot. A torch takes up a slot, and you might have to make the decision: do I drop my rations to carry more gold? And it's not about going into the dungeon, killing things, and just taking all the gold, because the greater question is, if you stood on a mountain of gold, could you even take it out the dungeon? And more often than not, the answer is no. There's also another aspect of Shadow Dark, and that is attacking the light. Monsters will wait in the shadows to avoid the light the players have, maybe waiting for the light to go out. Or they will attack the light, taking out a lantern or a torch and throwing it away or snatching it away, or dousing it or what have you, ultimately dumping the players into complete darkness. And those two things, attacking the light, only so many slots to carry light, both come into conflict with each other, even if one is not directly attached to the other one. It's not like on the character sheet it says you must have so many sources of light because the monsters will attack the light. You will find that out as you get into the game. Of course, it's been revealed online and whatnot, but some players may not even consider it. They're like, well, I'll take a torch or two. I don't really care. And then they get down into the darkness and they're like, we should all carry 5 torches. Or they can game the system by maybe one player carries most of the torches and everyone else is carrying something else. Yep, left behind, the big pile of copper pieces. Yep, everybody does that, right? It's just like, carry the platinum and the electrum. Has anybody even used electrum in a recent game? I don't even know. But that element, even the torch timer of the torch goes out in 1 hour's real time, I know that rubs people the wrong way, but I love it. It means that hanging around in the first 3 rooms or speed running through the dungeon doesn't matter. At some point that torch is going to go out. And I like the idea that, not keeping track and all of a sudden a timer goes off and everyone's just like, what? I agree. Drew says the menu can be applied to our hobby as well, with the theme of entertainment and how basically running games is so often treated like a thankless service. Yeah, I agree. Short swords, the abandonment. Yeah. Short swords, the abandonment. Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. Dungeon masters, game masters, storytellers, flame tenders get to be burnt out in the game. Players treating the game as if it's like torches, the race against time. Players treating the game as if it's an MMO, ignoring the human being that created it in the first place and whatnot. Players trying to steal time. I'm gonna split the party and go off on my own so I can have my own game master. Those kind of things. Yeah. Hell, even the opposite. The gatekeepers that feel like tabletop role-playing games are the end-all of the universe, and anyone that does anything to question its place in society and its ascension to the top of all hobbies needs to be cast down and burned and whatnot. It's a whole bunch of stuff. Heck, even in the movie The Menu, there's a character who embraces the Mercer effect, and because he's a fan of the chef, thinks he is a chef. And there's a whole thing. Great movie. Great movie. Love the satire involved in it. Especially the dare I say twist at the end, and the satisfaction that the chef gets at the end in a weird way. It's really good. It's really good. Lastly, I will say that when it comes to like dice mechanics, and because I was just pointing it out, I was just like, I don't see a lot of percentile systems getting out there. I'm very impressed Mothership has a cult following like it does, and there are many people who've written like supplements for it and really support it. Its aspect. There was a game that was reviewed by Dave Thalmavor, known as Nomad something. Yeah, done on purpose, right? Tensor's floating disk, the lame game mechanic workaround. Yep. colon. Yeah, right. Tensor's floating disk was the get the gold out the dungeon spell. That's basically what it was supposed to be. And that spell has more restrictions on it than like that little tag you get when you buy an electronic device that says like will not work unless plugged in. Do not make toast next to a bathtub kind of thing. Yeah, it's got so many like, well, you know, if you walk away from it, it will follow you, but at a distance of 30 feet, but only floats 3 feet off the ground, so you really can't fly across a crevice with it, but it can hold things. It's all the kind of stuff there. Well, hello to you too. Where are you? Over there on Twitch. Hello, how are you? We over here talk about tabletop role playing games. We get a little highbrow, and we're kind of at the end of our broadcast, but always love to have you. Yeah, pack me, pack mule the emergent behavior. Yeah, players are like, yeah, maybe we should have hired those retainers. That's what that gold was for. Oh man! But anyway, guys, thank you very much. We'll continue this week to talk about game design. I'm coming towards the end of Obsidian Star. The two major things that I'm really working on are gamifying all the jackets that people can wear in the sci-fi game. We've got our zippers, which are our brains, but our jackets, our bodies, are the thing that I'm working on in terms of making it easy to be reinserted into different jackets, but also making it substantial. Yep, bag of holding. Don't forget the portable hole, which is even worse. Yeah. Heck, even the idea of getting rid of encumbrance was kind of a downfall for Dungeons and Dragons, and now is being now, mind you, counting all the poundage and all that. Nobody wants to do that. How many kilos is? It's kind of stupid. And I remember doing that in games. I actually remember, like, we played with people who were just like, no, you got to count up all the weight. But having slots instead is going back to Tome of Lime's. Going back to Tome of Lime's. Here we go. Where's the channel? Going back to Tome of Lime's channel and talking about that video that he has, which is it this first one? Well, yeah, 7 days ago. This Intuit channel broadcast here. At all props given to the Tome of Lime Gaming channel. This individual was just saying, like, well, the idea of even having to make a hard choice is part of the game. No, not the end of it. Not getting rid of it. Get the end of the writing portion of it. Not the end of the game. Yeah. Well, there are some people who might be thinking that there is the end of the end of the system as we know it. But yes, absolutely. Yeah. All the random charts that I'm including in it, and all of the jackets are two main hurdles, because I want like Shadow Dark that has some context to it. I would like a tabletop role-playing game that has a setting that people are not familiar with is already hard enough. So giving some sort of context to what's happening is the important part. Essentially making bullet points so that people can encounter them and then use them and then feed off of that, and then use that throughout the entire solar system, or our solar system, while also making it feel claustrophobic as well. Open yet claustrophobic. Kind of, it's weird. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. Apparently the snotties are starting to drain from my sinuses. I can feel it in the back. I'm sure you can hear that in my voice. I apologize. I'm going to have to hawk a loogie coming up pretty soon. So anyway, thank you very much for being part of the show. Thank you very much for sticking around and just coming to the table. And we'll continue this. Yeah, I gotta take the meds and all that kind of stuff coming up. So thank you very much for being here as well. And also, if you are a budding game designer, like, take a look at the information presented to you by a number of these creators. I just Drew and I happen to be in alignment with this one creator, but there's many others out there. And is there something wrong with your game design? Maybe not. Is there something that you're overlooking? And these subjective elements of how something feels might not be in alignment with how the math and the pragmatism of your design. Maybe there's just something that the players will wrap themselves around and go like, oh, this feels good. How about a Planescape tie-in? No, we're not going to do that. But I do hope that as well. Everyone, hope your next Fraction of Eternity gets you off to a good start. Guys, have a great day. Have a great week as well upcoming. And here in the Ohio Valley, we are getting into our spring season, 40s to 70s Fahrenheit here, so kind of like it. Hopefully it won't be too much rain in our spring, but who knows. So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. One creator, the alignment. Oh no, that would be the game that just would turn everybody off, or be a flame war. A whole game based around alignment? This is stupid. Anyway, guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility. Bye.